Many argue about what makes something a great adaptation. Does it match the original source exactly, or does it take some creative licensing that the original work may have been unable to do? Is one source inherently better? In my review of No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy, as well as its adaptation by the Coen brothers, I hope to explore the differences between the two sources and what they may mean and why the differences exist. The scene shown above is almost identical in the novel. Though there is no doubt that Cormac McCarthy is a talented author, some of the scenes in the novel are naturally more suspenseful when created in the movie because of their cinematic nature, such as this scene here. For example, the book says, "He stood at the door listening again. He dragged out the nylon bag from where he'd pushed it under the bed and set it in the chair in the corner. He went over and switched on the light at the bedside table and stood there trying to think. He realized that the phone might ring and took the receiver from the cradle and laid it on the table. He pulled back the covers and rumpled the pillows on the bed. He looked at the clock. 4:43. He looked at the phone lying there on the table. He picked it up and pulled the cord out of it and put it back in the cradle. Then he went over and stood at the door, his thumb on the hammer of his shotgun. He dropped to his stomach and put his ear to the space under the door. A cold wind, as if a door had opened somewhere. What have you done? What have you failed to do?" Page 110. In both sources, the sense of suspense is definitely present. However, the movie is able to make use of lighting and an absence of sound which give the viewer a feeling of uneasiness and apprehension without much work, whereas the book must rely on the reader's own sense of imagination. In the novel, Chigurh tells Carla Jean, "When I came into your life was over. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is the end." Right before it explicitly tells the reader he shoots her, on page 261. However, in the movie, this murder is implied. After he leaves the house, he checks his boots, looking for blood on them, which is eerily reminiscent of Carson Wells' death. Now, the Coen brothers may have done this as a way to try to eliminate some of the violence in the movie, but when I watched this, I interpreted this as their way to connect the murders and show that Chigurh's ruthless message is always the same. He will always keep his word. Even beyond the previous scene, I found that Chigurh's character is treated very differently between the two sources. The novel allows the reader to understand possible motives behind Chigurh's actions as well as the development of his personality. He is portrayed as a man who has morals despite what may seem like senseless killings. These senseless killings are seen almost as choices instead that characters make, and he is characterized by his strong belief in fate. This is most noted during his famous coin tosses. Yet the movie deconstructs the depth his character has in the novel and instead demonstrates him as the archetypal bad guy. This is most strongly seen during Moss's murder. Chigurh is seen as having a motivation and again a promise on his word in the novel, whereas the movie does not even explain any possible motives. In fact, Moss's murder happens off-screen. By eliminating the viewer from this critical moment, it creates a sense of detachment that portrays the same scene as simply evil and senseless actions through Chigurh's eyes in the movie. The sources also most notably differ in Sheriff Bell's character development. Whereas the novel has scattered diatribes that express Bell's growing uneasiness with the new coming-of-age men he lives among compared to his father's days where men were considered to be glorious, the movie almost completely leaves these out. It is clear to see Bell's change in character throughout the movie without them, though. But the ending monologue is the exact same between the two sources, and the Coen brothers portray the same scene just as McCarthy does, one that creates an image of a drained and distressed Bell. I found that the movie adaptation was strikingly similar to the novel. I greatly appreciated both sources, finding that the novel had strengths the movie lacked, and vice versa, such as the use of light and the lack of sound in the movie, but an apathy that could not be portrayed other than in a novel. Though not extremely different, I found that they were both different crafts, and I found it interesting to consider why they may differ on the few things they did, and I am interested to see what my classmates think.